The Almeida mansion shone that Saturday afternoon like never before. Crystal chandeliers reflected the golden light of dusk. Arrangements of white flowers perfumed every corner, and impeccably uniformed waiters circulated with silver trays laden with champagne glasses. It was the wedding of Bianca, the biological and adored daughter of Marta and Geraldo Almeida. An event that had been planned for months, with a budget that could easily buy a luxury apartment. The activity was frenetic from the early hours of the morning, decorators adjusting the last details, musicians testing instruments, photographers strategically positioning equipment to capture every moment of what would be, in Marta's words, the social event of the year. The guests, all carefully selected from the city's elite, began to arrive wearing their best clothes and most expensive jewelry, as if participating in a silent competition of status and elegance. No one skimped on smiles or expensive gifts. Everyone wanted to be seen and remembered at that celebration, which, more than a wedding, was a demonstration of the Almeida family's power and influence. Amid all that luxury and hustle, Clara moved like a shadow, almost invisible to most of those present. As the adopted daughter of the Almeidas, she had no defined place at the party. She was not a guest. She was not an employee. She existed in a limbo that the family seemed to have created especially for her. Wearing a simple navy blue dress, with her brown hair tied in a discreet bun, she helped where she could, arranging a flower out of place, collecting an abandoned glass, guiding a lost guest to the bathroom. Her brown eyes, deep and observant, carried a sadness that no one bothered to notice. When she passed through the kitchen to check if the canapes were being prepared as planned, one of the new waiters mistook her for the event coordinator. "Do you need anything, ma'am?" he asked respectfully. Clara just smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and shook her head negatively. That small moment of dignity soon dissipated when Marta appeared at the door, in her Italian silk dress and family jewels, and cast a cutting glance at Clara. "What are you doing here? Go check if the ceremony candles have been lit. And for God's sake, try not to drop anything on the way." The words, spoken in a low voice so that only Clara could hear, carried the weight of years of poorly disguised contempt. Bianca appeared at the top of the main staircase around noon, surrounded by a beauty team, as if she were a celebrity. Her wedding dress was still covered by a protective cape, but her face already displayed impeccable makeup, and her blonde hair was partially styled with diamond clips that sparkled with every movement. "It's too hot down here. I want you to adjust the air conditioning now," she ordered, without looking at anyone in particular, as she descended the steps with exaggerated care. One of the makeup artists ran after her, with a palette of shadows, trying to finish the work while the bride moved. "Bianca, darling, you look absolutely stunning," exclaimed Marta, approaching with open arms, but carefully avoiding touching her daughter's face or hair. "Mom, the napkin tone is wrong. I asked for blush pink, and this is clearly baby pink. It's a disaster," Bianca replied, ignoring the compliment and pointing to a stack of napkins folded on a nearby table. Marta immediately changed her expression from adoration to concern. "I'll fix it right now, darling. Don't worry about anything." She turned, looking for someone to blame, and her eyes met Clara, who was passing by carrying a box of scented candles for the altar. "Clara, come here immediately," she called in an authoritative voice. Clara placed the box on a table and approached, keeping her eyes down, a habit developed over the years to avoid confrontations. "Yes," she replied simply, already anticipating being held responsible for something she hadn't done. "Did you check the napkins when they arrived?" Bianca specifically asked for blush pink, and this, Marta grabbed one of the napkins and practically rubbed it in Clara's face. "This is baby pink. How could you let this happen?" Clara took a deep breath before answering, mentally counting to 3, as she always did in these moments. I wasn't in charge of checking the napkins, Marta. The event coordinator confirmed all the colors with Bianca yesterday. Her voice was calm, without a trace of defiance, merely stating a fact. Bianca let out a scornful laugh. Of course, she's going to shirk responsibility. That's what she always does. Marta pursed her lips into a thin line of disapproval. It doesn't matter who was supposed to check. Fix it now, call the supplier, and demand they bring the correct napkins immediately. And if that's not possible, find a solution. This is your sister's wedding, for God's sake. Try to contribute something useful for once. Clara nodded silently, took her cell phone from her pocket, and walked away to make the call, while listening to Marta comment to one of the bridesmaids. 25 years in this house, and she still hasn't learned to be grateful. Some people are just born to disappoint, aren't they? Outside the mansion, sitting on a stone bench, partially hidden by an ornamental bush, Clara spoke on the phone with the napkin supplier. Yes, I understand it was approved yesterday, but there was a misunderstanding. We need the blush pink tone, urgently. She massaged her temple with her free hand, feeling the onset of a familiar headache. The supplier on the other end of the line explained that it would be impossible to deliver new napkins in time for the ceremony, which would begin in just 3 hours. Clara closed her eyes for a moment, visualizing Marta and Bianca's reaction when they received the news. It wouldn't be the first time she was blamed for something completely out of her control. As she thought of a solution, she watched the movement of the employees setting up the last structures in the garden, the altar covered in white flowers, the rows of chairs decorated with satin ribbons, the cream carpet that would be the bride's path. It was a fairy tale setting, meticulously planned to create perfect memories for Bianca. Clara couldn't help but think of her own 18th birthday. 3 years ago, when no one in the family even mentioned the date. She had prepared a simple cake for herself and eaten it alone in her room, while downstairs the family celebrated a promotion that Geraldo had received at work. I have an idea, Clara said to the supplier, suddenly inspired. Do you have satin ribbons in blush pink? Great, could you send them immediately? I'll find a way to incorporate them into the napkins. She hung up the phone and took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility that always fell on her shoulders. As she got up to return to the mansion, she noticed a tall man in a dark suit watching her from across the garden. He seemed out of place among the busy employees, as if he were there for a different purpose. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and Clara felt something strange. It wasn't pity or curiosity, emotions she was used to when people found out her position in the family. It was something different, something she couldn't identify. She quickly looked away and went back inside the house, where she found Geraldo in the office, talking loudly on the phone with some important partner. Yes, the party will be the event of the year. My princess deserves only the best. You won't believe how much we spent just on the flowers. He laughed loudly, showing off the gold watch on his fat wrist with an exaggerated gesture, even though his interlocutor couldn't see it. When he noticed Clara standing at the door, his smile instantly disappeared. He covered the phone with his hand and asked irritably, "What do you want?" "I'm busy." Clara quickly explained about the napkins and her solution with the ribbons. Geraldo waved his hand dismissively. "Whatever, just fix it, and don't bother Bianca with insignificant problems, and close the door when you leave." He immediately returned to his phone conversation, as if Clara had never been there. In the mansion's kitchen, a team of 10 people worked frantically preparing the buffet. The head chef, hired from a starred restaurant, shouted orders, while his assistants cut, seasoned, and decorated elaborate dishes. Clara entered discreetly, looking for a quiet space to work with the napkins. She found an empty corner at the end of the large central island and began unpacking the ribbons that had just arrived. One of the kitchen assistants, a middle-aged woman with a kind face, approached, offering a glass of water. "You look exhausted, dear. she commented in a low voice. Clara thanked her with a genuine smile. The first of the day. I'm Donna Conceição. I've worked for the Almeidas for almost 10 years, but I've never seen you around here. Clara explained that she lived in the house, and the woman's expression changed subtly when she understood the situation. It wasn't pity, but a kind of silent recognition. Let me help with that, she offered, sitting down next to Clara. Together, they began to work on the ribbons, delicately wrapping them around the baby pink napkins, creating an effect that completely disguised the original tone. You have skillful hands, Dona Conceição observed. Clara shrugged. I learned to fend for myself. As they worked, Clara felt the occasional gaze of the other employees, some curious, others indifferent. To them, she was just another person in the hierarchy of the house, neither employee nor boss, an anomaly that no one knew exactly how to treat. With 2 hours to go until the ceremony, the pace at the mansion intensified even further. The musicians arrived and began tuning their instruments in the gazebo specially built for the occasion. The main photographer and his 3 assistants circulated, capturing the moments of preparation, carefully avoiding including any employees. In the images, the illusion of perfection should not be broken by anonymous faces working behind the scenes. Clara and Dona Conceição finished with the napkins, creating small works of art that now seemed to have been planned from the start. Clara carefully carried them to the main hall, where Marta was supervising the final arrangement of the tables. I managed to solve the napkin problem, Clara said, showing the result. Marta examined one of them with a critical expression, looking for flaws. Finding none, she limited herself to a brief nod. Put them on the tables then, and then go help Bianca. She's having a crisis over the veil. There was no thank you, no recognition of the effort or the creativity of the solution. Clara already expected this, but still felt a pang of disappointment. As she distributed the napkins on the elegantly decorated tables, she noticed the man in the dark suit again, now talking to one of the guests who had arrived early. There was something familiar about him, although Clara was sure she had never seen him before. He seemed out of place among the other guests, who displayed artificial smiles and superficial conversations. His gaze was intense, observant, as if he were evaluating every detail of the environment. When he realized Clara was watching him, he smiled slightly, a smile that contained neither pity nor disdain, just a kind of silent understanding that intrigued her. Clara went upstairs towards the main room, where Bianca was getting ready. She could hear the bride's hysterical screams before she even reached the door. It's my wedding. How can't you do something so simple? When Clara entered the room, she found a chaotic scene. Bianca, already dressed in her sumptuous wedding dress, an exclusive creation that cost the equivalent of a luxury car, gestured furiously at the makeup artist and the hairdresser, who seemed on the verge of tears. The veil, a delicate work of French lace that had been specially imported for the occasion, was spread out on the king-size bed. The comb is crooked. How am I going to wear this? It looks like amateur work. Bianca pointed to the small silver comb that held the veil to her hair. Clara discreetly observed that the comb was perfectly aligned, but knew better than to contradict the bride in that state. Can I take a look? She offered in a low voice. Bianca turned to her, her eyes flashing with irritation. Now the wedding expert has arrived. Please enlighten us with your vast experience in bridal veils. The sarcasm was cutting, but Clara was used to it. Ignoring the comment, she approached the veil and examined the comb. With skillful fingers, she adjusted it slightly, not because it needed it, but because she knew Bianca needed to see some change being made. Try it now, she suggested, holding the veil for the bride. Bianca grabbed the veil with a brusque movement, as if she feared Clara might contaminate it in some way. The hairdresser helped her put it on, and Bianca examined her reflection in the full-length mirror, turning her head from side to side with a critical expression. Finally, she seemed satisfied, although she refused to admit it. "At least it doesn't look horrible now," she murmured, dismissing Clara with a wave of her hand. At that moment, Marta entered the room, already completely dressed in her teal dress that had been custom-made to disguise some imperfections in her silhouette. Her blonde hair, recently dyed to hide the gray strands, was impeccably arranged in an elaborate bun, and her face displayed heavy makeup that attempted to rejuvenate her. "Bianca, darling, you look absolutely stunning," she exclaimed, with tears in her eyes that she carefully didn't shed so as not to smudge her makeup. Mother and daughter admired each other, exchanging exaggerated compliments, while Clara remained invisible in a corner of the room. It was only when Marta needed someone to fetch her jewelry from the safe that she remembered Clara's presence. "Oh, you're still there? Go get my sapphire set from the safe. The combination is the same as always." Clara nodded and quietly left the room, hearing Marta comment to her daughter, "She always has that abandoned dog look." "It's exhausting," Bianca laughed, a high-pitched and artificial sound that Clara knew well. It was the same laugh she had used since childhood when she mocked her in front of her school friends. In the hallway, Clara took several deep breaths, trying to ward off the familiar feeling of tightness in her chest. It wasn't the time to be brought down by words she had heard hundreds of times before. In Geraldo's office, Clara opened the safe, built into the wall behind a very expensive, abstract painting that he loved to display to guests, as proof of his refined artistic taste. She entered the combination, beyond birth date, of course, and removed the blue velvet case containing the set of sapphires and diamonds that Geraldo had given Marta on their 20th wedding anniversary. As she closed the safe, Clara couldn't help but notice a folder of documents with her name written on the side. She hesitated for a moment, looking at the door to make sure she was alone. With her heart racing, she quickly opened the folder and found her adoption papers, along with some old letters and photographs. One photo in particular caught her attention. It showed a young woman holding a baby, with an expression of deep sadness in her eyes. Clara turned the photograph over and read the inscription on the back. "Alina with Clara. 1997. She felt a lump in her throat as she realized she was looking at her biological mother for the first time. She wanted to examine more, but she heard footsteps approaching in the hallway. Quickly, she put everything back in place, closed the safe, and left the office with the jewelry case, her heart beating erratically against her chest. That unexpected discovery opened a door that she didn't know if she was ready to cross. Who was Alina? Why did Geraldo keep that photo? And why had they never mentioned her biological mother by name? When Clara returned to the master bedroom, she found Bianca alone, admiring herself in the mirror while practicing different expressions for the photographs. Marta had gone downstairs to greet some important guests who had just arrived. "Here are your mother's jewels," Clara said, placing the case on the dresser. Bianca didn't even bother to look at her, continuing to admire her own reflection. "You can go now. I need a moment alone before the ceremony." Clara nodded and turned to leave, but something made her stop at the door. Maybe it was the recent discovery of the photo, or maybe it was the accumulation of years of degrading treatment, but she felt a sudden need to say something. "Bianca," she began, her voice firmer than she intended, "I really hope you'll be happy." Bianca finally looked at her, surprised by the unusual tone. For a brief moment, something akin to guilt, or perhaps even shame, crossed her eyes. But it was soon replaced by the familiar expression of disdain. "I don't need your approval or your wishes for happiness," she replied coldly. "And frankly, it's a little pathetic that you're hanging around all day, sneaking around the corners like a sad shadow. Why don't you just leave? No one here needs you." The words hit Clara like a slap. Not because they were new. Bianca had said similar things before, but because, for the first time, Clara wondered why she really stayed there. What bound her to that house, to that family that never treated her as one of their own? As she walked down the stairs, This question echoed in her mind, along with the image of the woman in the photograph, Alina, her mother, whose eyes seemed to contain a story that Clara never had the chance to know. In the main hall, the guests were already taking their seats, chatting animatedly as they awaited the start of the ceremony. Clara watched the scene from a discreet corner, feeling like a spectator in a movie to which she didn't belong. The hall was stunning, with elaborate floral arrangements hanging from the ceiling. Scented candles illuminating the room with a soft, golden light, and a string orchestra playing classical melodies in the background. The guests, all impeccably dressed, formed small groups where they exchanged gossip and showed off their jewelry and expensive clothes. Clara recognized some familiar faces: Bianca's childhood friends who had ignored her at school, Geraldo's work colleagues who always looked at her with suspicion at the company's year-end parties, neighbors who never bothered to learn her name, even after so many years. It was then that she noticed the man in the dark suit again, now standing near the garden entrance, watching the movement with a thoughtful expression. There was something in his gaze that intrigued her. It wasn't the superficial curiosity or the veiled judgment she saw in the other guests, but something deeper, as if he were looking for something specific, or someone. When their eyes met for the third time that day, Clara felt a strange recognition, as if she knew that man from somewhere, even though she was sure she had never seen him before. At that moment, Dona Conceição discreetly approached Clara, offering her a glass of water. "You look pale, child. Are you feeling all right?" Clara thanked her with a weak smile, accepting the water. "I'm fine, just a little tired." The older woman looked at her with understanding eyes. "It's not easy, is it? Staying here, seeing all this." She gestured broadly at the luxurious hall. Clara was surprised by the woman's perception. "How do you know?" Dona Conceição gave a sad smile. "I've worked for families like this for over 30 years. I recognize the signs." She hesitated for a moment before continuing, lowering her voice. "You know, sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we were born into, or the one that chose us." Clara felt a lump in her throat. It was the first time someone had openly acknowledged her situation without pity or contempt, only with understanding. Before she could respond, they were interrupted by one of Bianca's brothers, Lucas, who approached with a malicious smile. Well, if it isn't our dear little adopted sister," he said, loud enough for the people nearby to hear. "Mom is looking for you. It seems someone spilled champagne on the entrance carpet, and well, cleaning up messes is kind of your specialty, isn't it?" He laughed at his own joke, looking around to see if anyone else found it funny. Dona Conceição discreetly squeezed Clara's arm in a gesture of support before walking away. Clara stared at Lucas for a moment, feeling a wave of anger that she rarely allowed herself. "You know, Lucas," she replied calmly, "I can clean a dirty carpet, but you'll never be able to clean up that character of yours. Some stains are permanent." And with that, she walked away, leaving him speechless, probably the first time she had responded to one of his taunts. Clara headed to the entrance of the mansion, where there was indeed a champagne stain on the imported Persian carpet. She grabbed a cleaning kit that she kept strategically hidden in a nearby cabinet. Years of experience had taught her to always be prepared for this type of situation, and began to work on the stain. As she scrubbed the delicate fabric with precise movements, using a special solution she had prepared herself, Clara felt the curious gazes of some guests passing by. Some looked away, embarrassed to see her on her knees cleaning the floor. Others watched with that distant curiosity of someone contemplating an exotic creature in the zoo. An elderly lady, wearing an expensive tweed suit and jewelry that seemed to weigh more than she did, stopped beside her. "Have you worked for the Almeidas for a long time, dear?" she asked with a condescending tone. Clara looked up, meeting the woman's gaze. "Actually, I live here. I'm Marta and Geraldo's adopted daughter," she replied with a calmness that surprised even herself. The lady's expression quickly changed from surprise to embarrassment, and then to a kind of pity mixed with morbid curiosity. "Oh, I didn't know they had. Well, how generous of them, isn't it? To take in a. She didn't complete the sentence, but the meaning was clear. Clara just smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, they are very generous," she replied, turning her attention back to the carpet. The lady quickly walked away, probably to share the juicy gossip she had just discovered. As she finished cleaning the stain, Clara heard a different kind of commotion. In the main hall, the ceremony was about to begin. She quickly put away her cleaning kit and headed to the garden, where the white chairs were arranged in perfect rows, facing the decorated altar. She found a discreet spot at the back, partially hidden by one of the large floral arrangements. The orchestra began to play the wedding march, and all the guests stood up, turning towards the entrance of the garden. Geraldo appeared, impeccable in his tuxedo, with a proud smile on his face. Bianca emerged right behind him, dazzling in her wedding dress, the veil partially covering her perfectly made-up face. Father and daughter began to walk slowly down the white carpet towards the altar, where the groom awaited with a nervous smile. Clara watched the scene with a strange sense of displacement, as if she were watching a movie about someone else's life. She remembered when Bianca and she were little, before the differences in treatment became so evident. There was a time, very brief, when they played together, shared secrets, laughed at the same jokes. But that time had been left behind many years ago, buried under layers of resentment, jealousy, and the constant reminder that Clara wasn't really an Almeida. No matter what her adoption certificate said, as Bianca advanced radiantly down the aisle, Clara couldn't help but think about the photo she had found in the safe. Alina, her biological mother, holding her in her arms with that look of deep sadness. What circumstances could have led that woman to give up her daughter, and why, among all the possible families, had fate placed her with the Almeidas? It was then that Clara noticed again the man in the dark suit, now standing on the other side of the garden, watching not the bride, like all the other guests, but directly at her. Clara, with an intensity that made her shudder. The ceremony proceeded as planned, with emotional vows, exchange of rings, and the traditional kiss of the newlyweds. The guests applauded enthusiastically when the celebrant introduced the couple as husband and wife. Clara watched everything with a growing sense of unease. It wasn't just the usual discomfort of being at an event where she wasn't welcome, but something deeper, as if something important was about to happen. Her eyes kept meeting those of the mysterious man in the dark suit, who was now closer, talking to one of Bianca's uncles. When the ceremony ended and the guests began to head to the hall where dinner would be served, Clara decided she needed to find out who that man was. She moved discreetly among the groups of people, trying to get closer to him without attracting attention. That's when Marta intercepted her, holding her arm with enough force to leave marks. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed between her teeth, maintaining a fake smile on her face so that no one would notice the tension. "You're circulating among the guests as if you were one of them. Your place is in the back, helping with the buffet." Clara looked at Marta's hand on her arm, and then directly into the eyes of the woman who had raised her. "I'm not a maid, Marta. I'm your adopted daughter, remember? Or does that only count when you need to brag about your charity to your friends?" Marta paled, looking quickly around to see if anyone had heard. "How dare you, after everything we've done for you? You'd be a nobody if it weren't for us. You'd probably be on the streets, or worse." Her words were like knives, but for the first time, Clara didn't flinch. Maybe it was the discovery of her biological mother's photo, or maybe it was simply the accumulation of years of emotional abuse reaching its limit. But she felt an inner strength she had never experienced before. "No, Marta, I would be someone different, but never a nobody. And maybe, just maybe, I would have been loved for who I am, not tolerated as a charity project gone wrong. Marta dropped her arm as if she had been burned, her eyes wide with shock. Never, in all those years, had Clara responded that way. Before Marta could recover enough to respond, Geraldo appeared beside her, his face red from drinking champagne. "What's going on here?" he asked, his falsely jovial tone barely disguising his irritation. "Nothing you need to worry about, Geraldo," Clara replied, surprising herself with her own audacity. "I'm just reminding your wife that I'm a human being, not an accessory to your perfect family image." Geraldo frowned, his expression hardening. "I think you've forgotten your place, Clara. Maybe it's best if you retire to your room until you regain your senses and gratitude." Clara looked from Geraldo to Marta, and then to the hall full of rich and superficial guests. "My place," she repeated slowly. "It's funny how you always knew exactly what my place was, isn't it? Always in the background, always invisible, always grateful. Well, maybe I've finally realized that my place isn't here. It never was." With those words, Clara turned her back and began to walk away, feeling a mixture of terror and liberation. She had never confronted Marta and Geraldo like that, and she didn't know what to expect as a consequence. But something inside her had changed irrevocably. As she walked among the guests who were now watching her with poorly disguised curiosity, the scene between her and the Almeidas had not gone unnoticed. Clara felt a gentle hand touch her shoulder. She turned and found herself face to face with the man in the dark suit who had been watching her throughout the party. Up close, he looked even more familiar, with deep brown eyes that resembled her own, and an expression that mixed anxiety and hope. "Clara," he said, his voice slightly trembling. "My name is Miguel. I was brother, your mother." The world seemed to stop for a moment. Clara felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Alina, the name she had seen written on the back of the photograph just a few hours before. You knew my mother?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. Miguel nodded, his eyes shining with contained tears. "She was my older sister. I've spent years looking for you, Clara. Alina never wanted to give you up for adoption. She passed away 3 months ago, and her last request was that I find you." Clara felt the tears streaming down her face, unable to contain them. Her whole life had been built on the premise that no one wanted her, that the Almeidas had saved her from a terrible fate. And now this man, her uncle, was saying that her biological mother never wanted to abandon her. "I don't understand," she managed to say finally. "If she didn't want to give me away, how did I end up here?" Miguel looked around, aware that they were attracting attention. "Can we talk in a more private place?" he asked gently. Clara nodded and led him to a small reading room upstairs, away from the party. When she closed the door behind them, she felt like she was closing a chapter of her life and opening a completely new one. Miguel sat in an armchair, inviting Clara to do the same. "Alina was very young when you were born, only 17 years old," he began. "Our parents were extremely conservative and were furious about the pregnancy. The biological father disappeared as soon as he found out. Alina was determined to raise you alone. But then she became seriously ill. Shortly after your birth, a postpartum complication that almost killed her." Clara listened attentively, each word filling a void that she had carried for as long as she could remember. "Our parents took advantage of her illness to give you up for adoption without her consent. When Alina recovered and found out what they had done, she was devastated. She tried to get you back legally, but the Almeidas were powerful. They had connections. They claimed she was unstable, incapable of raising a child. The judge ruled in their favor." Clara felt like the whole world was collapsing around her. Her whole life had been a lie. All the times Marta and Geraldo insinuated that she should be eternally grateful for having saved an unwanted child. All the times they made her feel like a burden, an intruder in the perfect family. all based on a cruel lie. Did she try to find me?" she asked, her voice choked. Miguel nodded, his eyes reflecting his sister's pain. "For years, she never gave up on you, Clara, even when she got sick again, a few years ago. With the cancer that eventually took her, she kept looking. It was only last year that we got a clue about your whereabouts, through a former court employee who remembered the case." Clara covered her face with her hands, trying to process it all. Her biological mother had loved her, had fought for her, had died wanting to meet her, and the Almeidas knew it all along. The folder in Geraldo's safe with Elena's photo. They knew exactly who her mother was and how much she had suffered. "Why now?" she finally asked, staring at Miguel. "Why did you come looking for me today, of all days?" Miguel smiled sadly. "It wasn't planned that way. I looked for you at the Almeida mansion several times in the last few months. But they always told me that you didn't exist, that there was no Clara living there. It was only when I saw the wedding announcement in the society newspaper that I realized this would be my chance to enter the house without raising suspicion." "Did they deny my existence?" Clara asked, feeling a new wave of pain and anger that explained why she had never received letters or visits from strangers over the years. The Almeidas had effectively erased her existence from the outside world. Miguel gently took her hand. "Elena left something for you," he said, taking an envelope from his inside coat pocket. "She wrote this letter when she knew she didn't have much time. And she also left this." He placed a delicate silver necklace with a star-shaped pendant in Clara's palm. It was hers. She wore it every day, said it made her feel connected to you, wherever you were. Clara held the necklace as if it were the most precious object in the world, running her fingers over the silver star. She could imagine her mother, her real mother, touching the same pendant, thinking of her. With trembling hands, she opened the envelope and began to read the letter, written in delicate but firm handwriting. "My dear Clara," the letter began, "if you are reading this, it means that Miguel managed to find you, but I didn't have the chance to meet you in person. There are no words to express the emptiness I have felt all these years without you. I want you to know that there hasn't been a single day that I haven't thought about you, that I haven't wondered what your smile, your voice, your dreams would be like. You were never abandoned, my daughter. You were torn from me, and I fought with all my strength to get you back." Clara couldn't continue reading, tears blurring her vision. Miguel put an arm around her shoulders, offering the silent comfort of someone who understands the deep pain of loss and simultaneous discovery. They remained silent for a few minutes, with only the distant sound of the party music reaching them. Clara was trying to process everything she had discovered in the last few hours. Her entire life had been built on lies. She was not an abandoned child who owed eternal gratitude to the Almeidas for their charity. She was a loved, desired, sought-after child. A child who had been torn from her mother's arms through manipulation and lies. Slowly, like pieces of a puzzle fitting together, Clara began to understand many things. Marta's constant contempt, Bianca and her brother's cruel jokes, Geraldo's calculated indifference. They weren't just personality traits or family incompatibility. It was guilt. Guilt for knowing that they had stolen a child from a mother who loved her. Guilt for having built their perfect family on a foundation of lies. And perhaps also fear. Fear that one day the truth would come out, as was happening now. "What happened to Elena after she lost the lawsuit?" Clara asked, finally finding her voice again. Miguel sighed deeply. She never fully recovered. She continued studying, graduated in nursing, helped other young mothers, but there was always an emptiness in her. She kept an album with newspaper clippings about the Almeida's social events, hoping to find some mention of you, some photos. She even volunteered at schools she thought you might attend, just to have the chance to see you from afar. Clara felt her heart break as she imagined her biological mother living like this, so close and yet so far, consumed by the pain of separation. "What now?" she asked, looking at Miguel with a mixture of confusion and hope. "What happens now?" Miguel smiled gently. "That depends on you, Clara. I came here to fulfill the promise I made to my sister, to find you, deliver the letter and the necklace, tell you the truth. What you do with that truth is your choice." Clara looked at the necklace in her hand, feeling the weight not only of the physical object, but of everything it represented. 25 years of lies, of feeling inadequate, of believing she wasn't worthy of love. 25 years of a mother desperately searching for the daughter who was taken from her. "I want to know more about her," she said finally. "I want to know everything, what she was like, what she liked, what her laugh sounded like. I want to meet the family that should have been mine." Miguel smiled, his eyes shining with contained tears. "She was amazing, Clara, strong, determined, with a huge heart. You have her eyes, you know, and that way of tilting your head when you're thinking. It's exactly how she did it." Clara couldn't help but smile through her tears. It was the first time someone had found similarities between her and another person. The first time she felt like she belonged to a lineage, that she had roots. "I have photos of her, videos, letters, all saved for you. And there's more family waiting to meet you. Cousins, uncles, your grandmother." Clara's eyes widened. "My grandmother is alive." Miguel nodded. "Yes, our parents separated years ago. Our mother, your grandmother, never forgave herself for allowing you to be taken. She's changed a lot since then, and dreams of meeting you." Clara felt a wave of contradictory emotions, joy at discovering she had a family that wanted her, that had always wanted her, anger at the lost years, at the lies, but deep sadness for never having met Elena in life. She placed the star necklace around her neck, feeling as if a part of her biological mother was now with her. "I want to go with you," she said finally, her voice firm and determined. "I want to meet my real family. I want to know where I come from." Miguel smiled, relieved. "They're going to be so happy, Clara, all these years." At that moment, they were interrupted by the sound of the door opening abruptly. Marta stood in the doorway, her face a mask of contained fury. "So that's it," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "After everything we've done for you, is this how you repay us? Plotting with strangers during your sister's wedding?" Clara stood up, feeling a surprising calm. The fear she had always felt for Marta had disappeared, replaced by a clarity she had never experienced before. "He's not a stranger, Marta. He's my uncle, my mother's brother, my real mother, Elena." She saw Marta's face pale as she heard the name. "I know everything now. How you lied in court, how you prevented my mother from seeing me, how you hid letters and visits, all these years." Marta quickly regained her composure, her face hardening. "Don't be ridiculous. That woman was an unstable teenager who wasn't fit to raise a child. We did what was best for you." Clara shook her head, incredulous at the audacity of the lie. "The best for me, or the best for you? A child to show off when convenient, to hide when embarrassing, to use as a made an emotional punching bag." Her voice was calm, but charged with a strength that came from the depths of her soul. "You didn't save me, Marta. You stole me. You stole my mother from me, and you stole me from her." Marta took a step forward, her face contorted with rage. "How dare you, after everything we've done for you? We gave you a roof, food, education." Clara interrupted her, something she had never done before. "No, Marta, you gave me the bare minimum to keep up appearances, while sucking every drop of self-esteem and dignity. You made me believe I was less, that I should be grateful for crumbs of attention, but it's over." Clara took Miguel's hand, feeling strengthened by the connection with her real family. "I'm leaving, now, to meet the people who really love me, who have always loved me, even without knowing me." Marta laughed, a cold and calculated sound. And you think it's going to be that easy? That you can just walk out the door after everything we've done? For you, you have nothing, Clara. No money, no job, no place to stay. You'll be back crawling in a week, begging us to take you back. Clara smiled, feeling a confidence she had never experienced before. You're wrong, Marta. I have something you never gave me. I have the truth, and I have a family that wants me for who I am, not for what I can do for them. Miguel stepped forward, placing himself partially between Clara and Marta. Clara has a place to stay, a family waiting for her, and all the support she needs. Alina left a savings account for her, saved all these years. And more importantly, she has people who love her unconditionally. Marta paled again, realizing she was losing control of the situation. At that moment, Geraldo appeared at the door, his face red with irritation. What's going on here? Bianca is looking for you, Marta. The guests are asking where the mother of the bride is. His eyes narrowed as he saw Miguel. Who are you? Clara stepped forward. This is Miguel Geraldo, my biological mother's brother. He came to get me. Geraldo froze for a moment, his face quickly shifting from confusion to recognition and then to anger. You're not allowed to be here, he said to Miguel, completely ignoring Clara. I'm going to call security. It won't be necessary, Clara replied, her voice surprisingly firm. We're already leaving. I just need to get a few things from my room. Geraldo turned to her, his face a mask of contained fury. You're not going anywhere. Not today. Not during your sister's wedding. You're not going to create a scandal to ruin her day. Clara felt a surge of indignation. Scandal? Is that what you fear, Geraldo? That people will discover the truth about the perfect Almeida family? That they'll know you stole a child from her mother and then treated her like trash for 25 years? Geraldo took a step forward, his face contorted with rage. For a moment, Clara thought he was going to physically assault her, something he had never done before. Miguel stood protectively beside her. I think you better calm down, he said to Geraldo, his voice low but firm. We don't want to create a scene, but Clara is coming with me today, now. And if you try to stop her, I'll be very happy to tell all your illustrious guests exactly what kind of people you are. Geraldo and Marta exchanged glances, the realization of what was happening finally dawning on them. They were losing not only Clara, but control of the narrative they had built so carefully over the years. Go then, Geraldo said, finally, his voice cold. Get your things and leave. But don't think you'll be welcome back when this doesn't work out. Clara looked at the man she had called father all her life, feeling not anger, but a deep pity. Don't worry, Geraldo. I won't be back. Clara hurried up to her room, accompanied by Miguel. She took only the essentials, some clothes, childhood photographs, a small diary she kept hidden under the mattress. There wasn't much to take. Her life in the Almeida mansion had always been devoid of significant possessions. As she put her things in an old backpack, her eyes fell on a small music box she had received from a teacher in elementary school, the only person who had noticed her talent for drawing and encouraged her. She carefully placed it in the backpack, along with Elena's letter. When they came down the stairs, some curious guests watched the scene, whispering among themselves. Bianca was in the entrance hall, her face a mixture of confusion and irritation. What's going on? Mom is crying in the bathroom and everyone is talking. Her eyes narrowed as she saw the backpack in Clara's hands. You're leaving. In the middle of my wedding. Clara looked at the woman who had been her sister, in name only, never in heart. Yes, Bianca. I'm going to meet my real family. Bianca seemed genuinely surprised for a moment, before her expression hardened again. Well, that's just great. Always trying to get attention, aren't you? Even on my special day. Clara just smiled, feeling sorry for the woman in front of her. So beautiful on the outside, so empty on the inside. Goodbye, Bianca. I hope you find the happiness you seek. So much she walked out the front door of the mansion. Clara felt the cool night air touch her face like a caress. The sky was dotted with stars, and the full moon illuminated the path ahead. Miguel guided her to his car parked on the street, far enough away not to attract attention. As they drove away from the Almeida mansion, Clara looked out the back window, watching the house where she had grown up become smaller and smaller in the distance. There was no sadness in her heart, just a strange sense of liberation, as if a huge weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "Where are we going?" she asked Miguel, her voice soft in the quiet of the car. "Home," he replied simply. "Your grandmother is waiting. Everyone is waiting." Clara touched the star necklace on her neck, feeling a deep connection with the mother she never knew, but who never stopped loving her. As the car drove down the road, leaving behind 25 years of pain and loneliness, Clara felt something new growing inside her hope. She didn't know exactly what the future held, but for the first time in her life, she was eager to find out. That day, which had begun like so many others in the shadow of the Almeida family, ended with a promise of a new dawn. Clara was finally going home, to the place where she had always belonged, even without knowing it. And as the city lights flashed past the car window, she smiled, knowing that, from somewhere, Alina was smiling too.